What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the All Benfica podcast. My name is Alfredo. With me tonight, Steve Santos making a return. What's going on, Steve?
Just made it back from my trip around the world. Saw a lot of beautiful things, and now I'm back in this cold, miserable Toronto. It's lovely.
There you go. Next to me, Mr. Cristiano Oliveira.
Hola. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Hola.
Hola.
Palisa.
On tonight's podcast number 136, we will look back at Benfica's game against Académica. We will also look ahead to Benfica's game against the Belenenses this coming weekend, and I think that's all we got. I don't think we're going to be talking about much more, but I'm sure we'll find some things to talk about.
There's always a Leverkusen game.
Oh, yeah, Leverkusen game, but that happens on Tuesday. We're going to record on Tuesday, so we could talk about the Leverkusen then and pretty much wrap up our Champions League participation. Benfica traveled to Coimbra to play Académica just this past week, and I'll give you the lineup real quick. It was back to the Liga games for Benfica. Júlio César, Maxi, Luizão, Jardel, and Almeida across the back. Samaris and Enzo were in the middle. Salvio and Gaetan on the wings. Talisca and Jonas. So it seems that Lima has finally hit the wall, the Vaca Sagrada, and as we've said here, Cristiano, if the man's scoring, meaning Talisca or whoever is scoring, then you should be playing.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's your best option right now up top. The other two guys that you have that could play as a striker really haven't given you much over the last, 3 months since the start of the season. So this guy's been the only proven goal scorer on Benfica so far as your strikers go, along with Talisca. And those are the only guys that should be playing at the moment.
Yeah. And, Steven, even off the bench, the first choice for the forward line is Derlei, not Lima. So, I mean, the writing is on the wall.
You think so? I don't know if I
know. Hope so.
I know that's what we saw in this game, but I'd be surprised if it continues this way. If Lima really is fourth option behind Derlei, just based on what we've seen so far and how Jesus just stuck with him even when he hasn't been playing well, I don't think he's going to drop him that quickly. But we can keep an eye on it.
Yeah. Surprised at all. I know that you like hating on Talisca. Surprised at all that it was probably his worst performance that I've seen so far. I think my opinion is that Jonas influences how Talisca plays.
I could see how Jonas moves into spaces that Talisca would like to pick up the ball in. I just think that as the goals are drying up, you might see a little bit more of what Talisca doesn't do on the pitch anymore, just like I used to say before, and he's struggling a little bit to adapt to the way the team actually plays in the build-up phase and whatnot. I think the reason why he doesn't look as good with Jonas is basically that. Jonas likes to come into pockets of space where Talisca likes to pick up the ball and run with it, where Jonas is coming in, checking in, knocking off 1-2s with his center midfielders, laying it wide. He's helping the team play a little bit better football. But Talisca's not really in sync with those movements just yet. I still think that if Talisca could get it in his head that when Jonas is coming short, I should go deep, go past him, and I'll eventually get the ball into space. I think the kid's got confidence in front of goal. It might even end up working out for him. But at this moment in time, it seems that the movements of Jonas are just really hindering where Talisca likes to play.
Yeah. What about on the reverse, Cristiano? Do you think that Talisca is affected, not Talisca, Jonas is affected, especially in his goal production, by playing with a guy that also plays dropped and not a guy that plays between the center backs?
I think in an ideal situation, Jonas, you'd probably get the best out of him if you were to play with a solid number 9 guy, with a Lima or Derlei. But the problem is these guys aren't putting the ball in the back of the net. So therefore, you have to play the only option, because if you choose to play one of those two guys up top, or if Benfica goes out and hopefully spends money on a quality number 9, a guy that can put the ball in the back of the net, one of those guys is going to have to be sacrificed, Talisca or Jonas, because you can't play both of them at the same time, as we've seen here. And Steve brought up a great point. Both of these guys are very similar in their movement and the way that they like to play with the ball at their feet, and they like to take chances. And it's just not happening right now for either guy. It's one game, though, to be realistic.
Yeah.
It's one game. Let's not go too crazy over one game, but I do agree. This is by far, in my opinion, Talisca's worst game of the season that I've seen with my own two eyes. And I know it's easy for Steve to say, you know what, this is more like the player that I projected he would be. I still think he's a young player. Let's give the guy some time. He will develop. I believe in Jorge Jesus. The guy develops 9 out of 10 players that he actually concentrates on, tries to get these guys to advance to the next level. So that being said, I still think the kid will be there in the end. But right now, at the moment, not sure if both of those guys are best suited to play side by side or together.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, what we see from Talisca right now is perhaps what we could more or less naturally expect from him. Young kid coming to Portugal, adapting to the speed of the game, adapting to the style of the game, away from his family for the first time. I mean, it was something that's expected. I think that the fact that he tore it up these first few games, I think it was a nice surprise, of course, but it wasn't the natural thing that we could expect from a young player. Steve?
The goals clouded everybody's vision on what Talisca really was, is what it's coming down to. And I've been saying this since day one. With a dose of
reality.
I don't think that Talisca's a bad player. Let me put this out there. I don't think that he has no future in European football. I'm going to put that out there as well. I just don't think that Talisca was the player and the hype that everyone was bringing around him at the beginning of the season, and even up until recently, just because of the goals. It was the goals that was creating the hype. And if you want to look at it in a even more skeptical way, Talisca makes the call up for the Brazil squad but doesn't play a minute. Talisca comes back after playing a couple of games in the Champions League. Every game in the Champions League, he's not looked good. So it's.
But Steve, that's a huge statement that you're making. He doesn't have a future in European football. Come on, dude. He's only 19 years old.
Steve, I agree.
I said that I never said that. You're putting words in your twisting.
Oh, you never said that. Sorry.
I said that I never said that.
Did you?
No,
so you do think that he has a future in European football?
I do. I just don't think he's. I don't think he's right now worth the hype that he's been given. Is what I'm saying. I don't think he's reached that level that he should even be hyped.
I think the game might be a little bit too quick for him. But guys, come on, let's be fair. It's one game. It's one game, guys. Let's not.
But
Steve has seen
that one game has shown me what he's been showing me the whole season.
That's fine.
He just stopped scoring
Steve,
goals.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. Have I, on this podcast or any other podcast or Twitter, wherever I voice my opinions, have I at any point said that this guy is playing spectacular, this guy is the future? I think I've always said, listen, he hasn't been the best team player as far as getting everyone else involved, but as long as the guy keeps scoring, he has to play, and I believe he will continue to play. I've never once said the guy right now was absolutely lights out.
Fine. You never said it directly in those words, no. But you always. But here's my argument for you. If he doesn't score for another 3 or 4 goals steady, or 3 or 4 games steady, what happens to him?
Well, let's see. I mean, let's see how far the guy develops. I think it's unfair to say right now after one game, because he could go off, the next 3 games and not score a single goal, but actually create chances and be involved in the game. And then what? We're just going to look at him based solely on goals? We can't do that either.
But that's all we've been doing up until now.
I think at the time, because he was the only one scoring until now. What are we supposed to do? All right, he's the only guy scoring, but you know what? He hasn't done crap. Let's sit him down.
Well, if you look at it, he is the reason why we're in first place.
No doubt about it.
If you want to break it down, you want to peel away the layers, and you want to do away with perhaps some of the more trained eye like Steve has, he is, when you break it all down, he is the one guy that's helped it to the first place.
I'll say this, man.
Based on concrete evidence that you can see.
Chalkboard Steve, my man is able to see these things before the rest of us can see, and we trust in his word. But I think right now, at this particular second, this particular moment, Steve might be a little bit ahead of his game, just at the moment, because I think the kid will develop into a quality player. He's just not there yet. But realistically, guys, we have to be fair because we give other guys passes. It's one game. He didn't score for one game, and he looked, terrible is a little bit too much, but he didn't look good at all.
Yeah, it was a tough game. It was a very tough game for him, but I mean, he's got plenty of work to do. We all know, but we'll see. But just getting a little bit into the game and just the game in general. I mean, this is a game, on the hangover of us being pretty much kicked out of Europe, both the Champions League and the Europa League, and Steve, we're going into this game, and you got to worry about some of the mental mindset of some of these players and how being kicked out of the Europa League and losing this game against Zenit was going to affect the mindset of these players going into this game. And the fact that we scored an early goal and that kind of put us on the right path, I think that helped out a lot with some of the anxiety that could have been created.
An early goal is always great for confidence. About this whole hangover and looking back at being knocked out of the Champions League, and you have to look at it and think, how much were they really affected? We've said a lot about it recently, and we've said that we're not sure how much emphasis has been put on the Champions League just based on some lineup decisions versus Leverkusen, the way the team looked in France. There was signs showing that this might not be our number one priority. So given that fact, maybe it wasn't so much of a hangover. Maybe it wasn't so much of a disappointed when we knew that we were finally out of it. I'm not saying this is the right thing. I'm not saying it's what we want to hear or see as Benfiquistas. But if the mandate from Luis Felipe Vieira and the rest of the club is that, you know what, this year the squad probably isn't good enough to compete in the Champions League. If we're out of it, we got to concentrate on the Bicampeonato, and that's what happens. Then maybe there wasn't that much of a hangover after the loss, right? Maybe it was just like, okay, that's done. Now we have to focus and concentrate on what's coming up ahead. I think I don't know if it was but after the Coimbra game or before it that Felipe Vieira came out and addressed the press and basically said
it was before.
It was before. So those of you who were with us celebrating at the Marquês last year in May, you got to be with us now on slightly more difficult times. So it seems like he was definitely trying to unite the spirit between the side and the fans, and maybe it wasn't so much against his plans that we went out of the Champions League, is what I'm saying.
I think he was trying to get more socios. That's what I think.
Bayern Munich just passed us.
Unidos.
Yeah.
Let's bows. We conquer the world.
Yeah, I think his whole thing was that he doesn't understand the deep depression that some fans fall into after something wrong happens with the team. And he obviously used the Marquês last year and how, things that happened during the season, the team recovered, and doesn't understand why people can't rally around the team and stay with the team because nothing is lost. And, the Bicampeonato is the biggest goal.
It is, and it should be the biggest objective. But the problem is that as Benfiquistas, man, long suffering, we want some European
glory.
I'm not going to say glory because realistically we're not going to win the Champions League. The odds are. But at least, exactly, get out of your group, man. Make some noise. Do what we did a couple of seasons ago with Simão and them guys at the helm, and hopefully put up some points and get some excitement back into the Luz, because we all know, man, as much fun as the Campeonato is, and it's nice to see 40,000-50,000 at the Estádio da Luz. There's nothing like seeing a jam-packed Estádio da Luz on a European night. That's the most beautiful thing there is. And so I just think that's where the fans are coming from. It's not that they're disappointed all in all, because I don't think the message has been at any point that this team was going to go on and do some damage here in the Champions League. I totally agree with Steve. I think the players themselves kind of like looked around and said, all right, we didn't dominate any of these games to the point where we were the better team on the field, so therefore we should have gone to points, and just things just went, wrong on us. That wasn't the case at all. Benfica were outplayed in the majority of these Champions League games, guys, to be fair. They got killed by Leverkusen. All right? Yeah. Monaco is, is a little 50-50, but it was an ugly-ass game. Zenit, they didn't do much. Benfica played slightly better in the second half, but all in all, Steve's not even paying attention. All in all, you know, they got that. I lose my track. Man. I lost my track. Man. Leave it alone.
Well, we're trying to slow down Cristiano so people can understand, because we've had some emails saying that Cristiano speaks too fast and he's hard to follow sometimes. So I was trying to slow him down, and I completely derailed him.
And yet he blamed it on me for not paying attention.
Yeah, but
no, because I was saying you're not. He was telling me like this with the hand, and I'm like, Steve's not even paying attention. Not to me, paying attention to this clown making his hand gestures. Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
No, I think that both of you guys make a great point, and the one thing that Steve said, and this is something that I've also read a lot of people saying that, maybe we should consider going in another direction because JJ has not brought us success in the European competitions. It has nothing to do with JJ. Clearly, the message this year was that our squad was not deep enough when we weren't going to go far in Europe. I mean, you could tell by the guy's speech, by the guy's presser, his whole composure. It's like he's got a like I don't give a fuck attitude, that he's out of Europe, because him and the president have obviously talked about this before the season started, and they came to an agreement. Let's just focus on the Bicampeonato. The team is way too short for us to be in Europe, especially deep in Europe in the Europa League going into February and March. Let's just focus on the Bicampeonato. So the guy right now, he has the backup of the president. So
I was getting ready to say, you know what, Jorge Jesus is a smart guy. He knows what he has. Wait. I was getting ready to say he's a smart guy. He knows what he has at his disposal. He knows what kind of players he has. But then again, this is the same guy that came out and said that he's the best coach in the world. So I don't know if that suits him or not.
Well,
I mean, he sure gave a lesson to Samaris.
Oh,
yeah,
jeez.
you saw.
But
Steve, you see? I mean, do you think somebody's understood a word he said?
Well, Jesus asked him, "Estás me entender? Understand? Understand?" Did you see that part? He asked him if he understood.
Every other word was caralho and foda-se.
But the funny part is, it seemed like it was a very simple situation where he was trying to explain to Samaris where he has to stay goal side. I mean, this is something you're taught as a 12-year-old.
Elementary.
Yeah. So
run to the near post.
That's elementary. You were just giving him a lesson in positioning, and the reason why Samaris fouled the guy was because he was out of position.
But the funny part was, well, I don't know if it's funny. I think you might get a little window on the way Samaris is handling his stay at the Luz so far. While Jesus is just berating him in Portuguese, Samaris isn't giving him the time of day. He's just looking away and like really, he looks like the pissed off son after his father's telling him off and not really paying attention.
But he did give him a little smack in the face after, like, tá bom.
Nah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
You blame somebody's dude. I mean, what the guy has no clue what the hell the guy is saying to him. You want him to look at him like,
I'm not saying otherwise. I'm just saying there's players, like I've said before, there's players who warm up to JJ and can take the way he treats you and they're fine with it. And there's players that it just doesn't click. It doesn't work for them. So
they take it the wrong way.
You know what?
I'd keep an eye on that.
Good. I hope he gets pissed off and he wants to leave. But you know what they do in the United States of America as far as baseball teams go? Every time they bring over one of these Japanese or Korean players, they hire a translator to be in the dugout, which is the bench, and be able to translate whatever it is that needs to be said to this guy.
That's what Raul José's job.
Yeah. And you saw Raul José run up while JJ is going absolutely crazy.
And what, this guy is like the specialty on all languages?
He can speak English.
I think he speaks English better than English.
Yeah. He could speak English. So he came up off the bench as if he was going to translate, and then JJ was just done with whatever he was saying. Then he came back again. But I thought that was one of his better games.
I'd have to agree with that.
That's not saying much.
Huh?
I'd have to agree with you on that. Yes.
Yeah, it's slightly better. He's still very, very far from the level where we want him to be, and perhaps he will never get there. and perhaps we'll see Fesa before Samaris will get to the level that we want him to be. But he was slightly better. Maybe the whole Cristante thing helped him out.
Perhaps. I honestly thought we might see Cristante in this game.
I thought so too.
I
was hoping that we would.
I had a feeling that we may. I think Jesus perhaps anticipated a more difficult match than we actually saw. I think the early goal might have masked how difficult the match should have been, and it kind of forced Academica to come out and play a little bit more. But I was really... I watched the Taça game, and I know you're going to probably come after me, but for me, the Taça game was probably the best game of football we've played so far against Moreirense. And I was like, maybe Cristante plays from now on. He looked that much better. I think the first goal, you see him release an early ball. If I remember right, it was right into Derlei. Derlei backheels it or something like that, and then Jonas ends up scoring. And
no, we praised him last week.
That is something that Samaris has never done yet. He hasn't had the confidence to play the ball early, even if it's lateral or forward or anything. He's never had the confidence to do it. So I was looking at that. I was like, maybe he'll play, but it didn't end up working out that way.
He's still a huge investment, and Benfica is going to try to force feed him, make this guy play, make him learn the position, because they can't afford to throw away 10 million euros. That's
they have to exhaust all of their chances and all their possibilities with Samaris. I agree with that. 10 million is a lot of money. But another guy that I wanted to talk about is Andre Almeida, and I think we spoke about him briefly last week. But and Steve and I were actually trading a couple texts about Andre Almeida while we were watching the game. And Andre Almeida really gives consistency to that left-hand side. And he also brings consistency to the back line, where Jardel can be a little shaky, and Jardel can't always defend two guys, especially if Eliseu is going up, then he's faced with two guys. You can't always defend that well, while Garay was an expert of doing that. We got Almeida now that doesn't go, granted he doesn't go forward as much as Eliseu, but brings a lot of consistency, gives up a good pass, has good looks, and he protects the ball, Steve.
Almeida is, Jesus said it just a few weeks ago, it doesn't matter where he puts Almeida, he knows he's going to get a competent performance out of him, and he doesn't have to worry about what he's going to bring to the table. And it's exactly that. Almeida on the defensive side of the ball is 10, 15, 20, maybe even more times than that better than Eliseu. And if that brings a little bit of rigidity to the team, it allows us to build on some of that defensive prowess, then maybe it's going to end up staying this way. Eliseu will come back from injury, and he might not make it back in. But for me, the only thing I don't like about Almeida is generally wrong-footed fullbacks, unless they're technically very, very good, they get caught out too many times in the build-up phase, or in maybe that second spot, like after the ball is past the center backs and it's kind of like just past the forwards, almost in between lines, and you're forced to come inside. And if you come inside and you play a bad ball, you're one ball away from being directly at the center backs again, and it gets ugly. But on the defensive side of the ball, you can't ask for more than Almeida. I don't think on the defensive side of the game, as far as our fullbacks go, I don't think we have a better fullback defensively than Almeida.
Yeah. What do you think, Chris? I have to agree. I don't even think that Moxie's as good as Almeida from our.
I was trying to save this whole Moxie conversation because I know we talked about this before we came on the air, which you're going to talk about certain guys leaving and certain guys not renewing their contracts. So I was trying to save my thoughts. But that being said, I mean, now that you guys brought it up, I think I've never been the biggest Moxie fan. I like the guy. I love his grittiness. I love his toughness. Never been his biggest fan. I think that Andre Almeida will be your starting right back once Moxie leaves. I think they'll still invest some money in some youngsters to fill the position, hopefully for the future, because I think the one thing that I like, and the one thing that I think Jorge Jesus likes about Andre Almeida is that you could fit this guy in at multiple positions, okay, and give guys breathers. And just like we're seeing now, Eliseo was hurt. You're able to plug this guy in at left back and not skip a beat. If somebody gets hurt in the midfield, you could kind of just keep rotating him and give guys, a breather, give these guys a chance to rest up if they got some type of knock on him, and he'll play. And it's that old saying. He's Mr. Reliable.
Yeah.
You know what you're going to get out of Andre Almeida. I don't think it's ever going to be spectacular, but I don't think it's ever going to be terrible. Yeah, he looks better some games than he does others, but he's a quality player that I think will most likely be a starting right back going forward because, the situation with Moxie, I still don't understand what the hell's taking everyone so long. And I think once Eliseo gets back, a huge, question mark is the off foot. Is Andre Almeida that spectacular player that he could? No. So you're going to place a guy that his natural position is left back. Eliseo, I believe, will get that left back position and start again and play there, whatever, as usual, like we're accustomed to seeing him. And I think Almeida will be the guy that will be making a switch over to right back.
Yeah. Okay. Very well. I mean, the thing about Moxie, we're going to get into it, but might as well. Moxie's contract, I believe, comes up this summer, so. As
of January, he could sign.
As of January 1st, he's free to sign whoever he wants. I mean, he won't move right away, but they will get him for free, basically. As of January 1st, he could sign a contract, and then come the end of the season, he moves on to another club. But back to the point you were saying, we got Almeida, we still got Cancelo. As far as I know, Cancelo still belongs to us.
So, I don't trust anything with those youngsters, Bernardo and Cancelo, because I have no idea who owns what percentage of what. So as far as I know, those guys that are on loan to outside countries, I don't trust anything anybody says because I don't know who the hell owns them.
Meaning, yeah, right, as far as owner, the past. But, I mean, hypothetically, or let's say that what we know about these guys and that Cancelo belongs to us, we look at the right back position, you got to think that it's pretty deep. So why go splurge the money on Moxie for as much of as a fan favorite as he is? Why go splurge the money on Moxie, give him more money when you got these two guys who could very well be the future of the club? Steve?
I think the club is thinking exactly the way you are. I remember in the summer, Moxie came out in the press, and I think it was just after the World Cup, and the way he was speaking, it looked like he might not even come back at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And I'm getting the feeling that I think he probably wants to make his way back to South America, maybe to an Argentinian team or something. And if we're not going to offer him the money that'll keep him away from that desire, then he's not going to stay. Being what it is, Jesus likes attacking fullbacks. Moxie is right now, considering Silvio's not fit, the best attacking fullback that we have.
Silvio doesn't even belong to us.
Steve, you bring up a great point that he might want to go back home or towards Argentina,
closer
back to
home,
obviously Uruguay, closer to home than Argentina, whatever. But if you believe some of the reports that have come out lately, Liverpool are interested in him. Arsenal are interested in him. Inter Milan are interested in him. So it might just be one of these, okay, you know what, I'm going to hold out because I'm going to get a better deal from Arsenal, Liverpool, and Inter. Even if it's to sit on the bench, then he's going to get at Benfica.
Yeah, well, not only that, he's reaching an age where he's going to go for
money.
one last payday.
It's either one last paycheck or go somewhere where he's going to be happy.
Right. And he's not. I don't think he's going to go to Uruguay just yet. I think that he's going to look for a nice payday in Europe, whether it's in England, whether it's in Italy, whether it's in Turkey. I don't know. He might even
here's my thing right now. Do you believe the stories, or do you think that's his agent just placing stuff out there?
It could be the agent placing. It could be the agent trying to place some pressure on Benfica to see if Benfica. I just don't know if Benfica had intentions of renewing with him. They would have already. I mean, they renewed with Luizão. Who else did they renew with?
Gaitan.
There was another. The Gaitan.
Salvio was on the table at the moment, supposedly.
I think Almeida might have renewed.
Yeah, Almeida renewed.
Almeida as well.
Right. So why not renew Moxie? That's the whole thing. I mean, I understand that he's a fan favorite. Like Cristiano said, the grittiness in him. He's the one guy that bleeds. That will absolutely eat grass for Benfica. And as a fan, we all love that, but you know the club is thinking.
The difference, though, between all those guys you mentioned that they renewed and him is, one, they're relatively young. Two, if you are indeed going to sell them, you're still going to make some type of money on them. Well, I don't think you're going to do that with Moxie. And I think, like you mentioned, you guys brought up a great point, Silvio, Cancela, and even Andre Almeida. They have so many different options that they could play at that right back position. Why go ahead and invest that money on a salary that will be one of the higher salaries on the team when they could just invest that and get, in 4 to 5 other positions of need?
Yeah.
So I like the guy as far as his toughness. As a player overall, I think there's times that he lacks something. I don't know what it is, but the guy, just the fact that you never know what this guy's a knucklehead. He'll just take you from behind. He's a knucklehead. He just comes and cracks at any moment. This guy get a red card. You gotta be honest. He's a good player and all, but there's just certain things about his game, to me at least, that I'm not a huge fan of. And the other thing that I wish Benfica could go ahead and do, man, is get me. And I know there's not many of them, guys, but get me a right back or left back with size. I keep seeing these tiny guys on the wings. Yeah, it's good because they're quick, but defensively, corners and free kicks, it kills you.
You got Almeida. He's got size.
Almeida's not short. If you start looking at the top clubs if you start looking at the top clubs in Europe, you'll see that a lot of the fullbacks are not very big anymore. They're more fast, technical players.
They're built for speed.
They're built for speed. They're built to be able to come back up and down that wing, and they're not really built to defend at the far post anymore.
Yeah,
it's a slightly different play.
Just one last thing, so we can move on. Enzo actually entered this game with 4 yellow cards. So if he gets the 5th one, he's got to sit out a game. Here's the thing, Steve. I don't understand why. I mean, we see it a lot. Why there was no direction from the team for him to force a yellow card so he could sit out against Belenenses
rather than Futebol Clube Porto.
Right, because after Belenenses comes Porto, and we all know that Enzo is a guy that doesn't shy away from tackles. So he could, an example of that is the four yellow cards that he already has this season. But I mean, a very risky move by JJ. Of letting him play, not telling him to pick up the yellow, sit out against Belenenses, and you're good for Porto. I don't understand that unless he doesn't have plans to play him against Belenenses, which doesn't really seem that logical.
Well, one way or the other, he's not either under suspension or under coach's choice. Maybe he wouldn't play under Belenenses, but I completely agree with you. Both him and Maxi are in the same boat with four yellows, and other coaches have done it. Other coaches have done it before.
Maxi already actually picked up his 4th. He picked up his 4th in this game, I believe.
So if he gets another one at Belenenses, he'll also miss the Futebol Clube Porto game.
Exactly.
Right.
So for me, neither of them play against Belenenses, to be honest.
The one thing you guys were talking about Cristante before, and this might be a chance for him to get Cristante some playing time, and I think that he's probably going to choose to go ahead and give Cristante some time at home. I mean, I think it'd be easier for the kid to play at home. So there's a great chance that he probably does that because you can't take the risk of playing Enzo and have the guy catch a yellow card and then you miss him for your most important game of the season so far. But then again, you're kind of in a conundrum because if you don't play him and you slip up, you're not helping yourself either. So it's a very, very tough decision here for Jorge Jesus coming up on Saturday.
Play for the moment.
Belenenses. You kind of have to play for the moment, tell him, listen, try not to go out there and get a yellow, but you can't really tell a player like that because then he can't be himself.
Yeah, and you don't want to go to the Dragão at the same amount of points.
No,
or worse. You want to keep the 3-point cushion because odds are that we're not going to get that favorable result at the Dragão that we all expect. That we all know the track history. I'm not being pessimistic here or a hater, but we all know the history at the Dragão for Benfica. So odds are that we're probably going to give up points over there. So it'd mean a lot if we could go into the Dragão still having that 3-point cushion to Porto. I mean, and I'm not disrespecting Guimarães because Guimarães is only 2 points away. But I think that Guimarães, well, we'll see. They will eventually.
It's critical that Benfica goes into the Dragão and at least gets a draw. Steve, we talked about this on last week's pod. We used a huge chunk of the pod talking about it. Benfica needs to come out with a positive result. I don't care if they play bad and win. I don't care if they play good and lose. We need to come out of the Dragão with points. What is your opinion? What are your thoughts on this game? I mean, I know we still have to play Belenenses, but as far as the Dragão.
I agree with you. I think there is a lot of weight in the game in Porto. Any loss could really derail what's been going on so far. Porto is slowly starting to play better football. They just destroyed, was it Rio Ave, I think 5-0 or something.
Yeah, but it's a shaky game. You know, got some shaky calls.
But still,
you know,
they have a lot more talent than we do. We cannot get. I know. I'm just reiterating what you guys said. A draw is okay. A loss could be very, very detrimental. I don't know if Benfica could bounce back, knowing what they have in themselves. The guys who are there from 2 years ago, the remaining guys, the Maxis, the Luizões, the Enzos, the Gaitans, they look at their side and they know they don't have the quality that they had before.
Yeah.
So, do they have the confidence that they'll be able to pull back if they lose at the Dragão? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So for me, the Dragão right now, it could be the turning point of the season. You win or you get even just a tie at the Dragão, bonus. Like it's paving the way. But if you get that loss, if you come back to Lisboa with a poor performance or even a good performance and a loss, it's not a good sign.
Yeah. But before we go to the Dragão, we got Belenenses at Estádio da Luz. That game comes up this Saturday, 5 p.m. local. And I'll give you some quick stats on Belenenses. Belenenses has been doing well this season. They're in 5th place, 21 points. I believe Benfica has 28 points, so that's not too far from us. 6 wins, 3 ties, 2 losses for them overall. Away, 3 wins, 1 tie, and 1 loss. So they haven't only lost 1 game away from the Estádio dos Pastéis.
Hey.
It's close enough,
anyway.
Steve knows that's probably one of the prettiest views that you can have from a stadium in Belém. In the last 10 matches that Belenenses played, Benfica at Estádio da Luz, 7 wins for Benfica, 3 ties. One of the ties came last year, if we remember. And Belenenses, like I said, they've been doing good. They beat Estoril this year, and they tied Sporting at Alvalade. So there's, if that doesn't raise some eyebrows, I know that Sporting's not doing that well, but this is a team, this is a Belenenses team that can throw down with anyone. If they're nice and organized, their coach is it Coceiro?
No, it's Lito Vidigal.
Vidigal. Sorry. But I mean, they're a very well organized team, and I'm actually I'm glad that Europe is done, because if that Leverkusen game was critical for our advancement, whether into the next round of the Champions League or into the Europa League, then it would have been a little bit of a distraction for this team heading into this Belenenses game, having to think about that Leverkusen game and how critical it would be coming up this Tuesday. With the Champions League, Europa League being done, we can go into this Belenenses game and not really think about what's going to happen on Tuesday.
Absolutely.
No, exactly. Just like Steve said, absolutely. I think Benfica has to put all their eggs in one basket, and that basket right now is concentrating on Belenenses, getting the 3 points, and have some type of chemistry, have some type of good form going into the Dragão next week. And who could care less? I mean, who cares about the Leverkusen game? It is what it is. We're out of all European competitions. Just send out the young kids, do what you have to do, get these guys some experience, and make sure that everybody, all your key players, are relatively healthy for the huge matchup over the next weekend.
Yeah, I agree. Steve, for the Champions League, a total revamped team?
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
Anyone but Jardel.
What about Steven Vittorio?
Steven Vittorio, he made an appearance today. He was on Instagram, I think on Fabio Cardoso's Instagram, which leads me to believe he's training with the B team.
Or he's the massagista. One or the other.
We had to bring him up. I'm sorry, listeners. I'm sorry. One day we will give this up.
We know we love Steven Vittoria. We love Steven Vittoria. That's all we gotta say. And anyway, well, we're hoping that one day we can bring him on a pod. I think that would be great. If anybody out there has a tight connection to Steven Vittoria, please get in contact with him. We would like to have him on the pod. Not to make fun of him. Just, we're fellow English speakers. Steve is a fellow Canadian. We want to throw down with Steven Vittoria and just get his thoughts, and it'd be wonderful. If anybody has that connection, I know that some guys are close to him or even some relatives. If anybody has that connection, I would love to make that happen. I know that we would all love to make that happen. But anyway, so Belenenses game coming up, very important. Steve, as you've said, let's give some burn to some of these guys that haven't played against Leverkusen, which is a game that comes up this Friday. This Tuesday for the Champions League, last game of the Champions League. And I think that that's about it.
So I haven't seen Belenenses too much this year. Just a couple players to keep an eye on. Daverson is actually ours. Was at the B team last year, and I haven't been able to get numbers on him. I can try to check right now.
Miguel Rosa playing for them?
Yes, he is. Daverson was actually mentioned by Jesus in a podcast, in a press conference earlier in the year. I think he's been doing quite well for them.
What about Thiago Silva?
Which is
kind of like a favorite of yours and mine, Steve.
He hasn't played much. I actually just checked that before we went on air because I was interested. He's the type of player I like, the small, technical, smart player, but he hasn't played too much.
And Daverson has 7 goals.
Daverson has 7 goals. He's a top scorer for Belenenses. And Jesus mentioned him, and he said, yeah, he's a player we still have an eye on. So it's a one to look out for. The other one is Fabio Sturgeon. I believe he's Portuguese, has Portuguese mother, English father. He's been linked to a couple of different English clubs. Very quick, could cause us some damage on the wings. But I'd be lying to you if I said that I've watched a lot of Belenenses this year. I don't really know what to expect from them outside of the players that I know from last year. So we'll have to keep an eye out.
And Matt Jones is the keeper.
Matt Jones, the Englishman. Right, or is he Aussie? Now I can't remember.
No, he's English.
There you go.
He's English, buddy.
I think he'd say
he's an English chap. He's an English chap, mate. Anyway, that's all I got.
They got a Freddie. It's not Freddie Adu, right? No, I'm joking.
No,
Freddie. I'm messing around. I know he was there a long time ago.
Angulanu, right? I think that's about it.
Fantastic job, Steve. Thank you very much for coming back and joining us here on the Benfica podcast. I'm glad to see some of your artwork, that you been able to put together through your travels throughout the world right behind you. It's very nice of you to sharing with us. And for those of you that are listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever object you're listening to, you should check us out on YouTube because that is impressive. Oh, let me be quiet so Steve can show it to you. Go ahead, Steve.
I'm trying to show off some stuff. See, some pictures of Porto, some pictures.
I just see green. Are you growing greens? I mean, like the greens that make people laugh. Funny.
Well, you see, Alfredo doesn't pay me enough on the podcast, so I have to make some money on the side. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's a good thing you bring up Alfredo doesn't pay you enough. Should I let everybody know about the latest deal I've signed with Benfica Podcast? Steve, or you want to break it down? You want to let everybody know breaking news?
Well, I've heard it's better than mine. It's something like 20 cents per word. If that's the case, I think Alfredo's going to have to take out a second mortgage or something because...
As you guys can see, that's why...
you can't afford that with your blabbermouth.
That's why Alfredo kept telling me today to slow down because you just hears the tick, ching, cha-ching, cha-ching in the background. So, today I was a little bit slower than usual, but, I got to get back to my, money-earning ways rather soon. I'm just glad I got the opportunity, man. I'd like to thank the Lord and everybody else for giving me the opportunity. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do this.
No, we appreciate Cristiano bringing his talents here every week. Also, if some of you are into the MLS and not only the MLS, but this week's episode of the BSH podcast, the Big Soccer Head podcast, in which Cristiano is one of the co-hosts along with Eric Krakauer, great discussion with a guest that writes for MLSsoccer.com. They discussed Thierry Henry,
Franco Panzio.
Tim Cahill, also a little bit of the MLS final, but most of it was about the Red Bull. So if you're a Red Bull fan or if you like Thierry Henry, I would advise everybody to check that out. BSH Podcast .podbean.com is where you can find it. You could also find it on Stitcher Radio, right? It's on Stitcher Radio and iTunes.
No,
it's not on Stitcher Radio yet?
I have no idea. I posted it one time. The second time it was too complicated. So
Right.
my producer's been slacking lately.
It's on iTunes, so you could download that, or you
And
can
YouTube.
you could check it out on YouTube, and you could also check Eric's website, BigSoccerHeadNewYork.com, right?
For the
Right along those lines.
for the people who actually watch this podcast instead of listening to it, any guesses on what year this shirt is? I can't remember. You guys know?
I got that shirt actually.
That's a
99? 99, 2000, maybe?
I don't know. That's a João. That was a João Pinto
That's
era.
a Calado. I see that shirt. I remember
Yeah,
Calado.
Calado,
Yeah,
yeah.
me too, actually. That's the first player I thought of when I
Yeah,
I
I have
put it on.
that shirt too. All right, that's pretty much it. Steve, at Steve Santos 6,
Correct?
Cristiano at 10CO10, and Cristiano is only 2 followers away from 3,000 peeps.
You know, I got to be honest. I haven't said much lately, but, you know, I'm really disappointed with my Benfica because I used to wake up all the time and have, like, my whole timeline, my old mentions packed, jam-packed. Now I go on, you guys don't even talk to me anymore. What is it? Am I boring or am I just saying too much on here? Which is the case. Let a brother know. Therefore, we'll settle it. We'll take care of it. But either way, most importantly, besides my Twitter account, obviously is this Benfica podcast. And we still have a bunch of T-shirts that we can email. I mean, not email. That'd be some type of record. That we could mail you guys, okay, once we reach 1,000 followers of Benfica podcast.
Yeah,
So get on it, people. Get on your horse. Start letting everyone know because you're going to get a beautiful, authenticated
Yeah.
T-shirt with signatures from the two of us, and we'll have to mail it to Steve's house so he can sign, and then he'll pay the total bill to ship it out to wherever the hell
Yeah.
you are.
Let's
God
hope
like
the
that.
1,000 follower isn't I like girls daily, because that'd be pretty shitty.
Did you? I'll tell you a story. I'll say it off the air. There was a crazy story with the New England Patriots.
Anyway, I
Yeah.
think that's about it for us. Next week we'll break down the Belenenses game. We'll also break down the Leverkusen game and look ahead to the game at the Dragão. Huge game, huge pod. Please don't miss it. Thanks a lot for everybody for checking us out. At 10CO10, at Benfica Podcast, and at Steve Santos 6 is where you can find us. Thank you very much. See you next week.
Até logo.